everyone, and welcome back to the Aesthetic and Wellness Edge. I'm your host, Bethany Gifford, and this is the show where we dive into real world stories, strategies, and challenges of leaders shaping the aesthetic and wellness industry. Today, we're welcomed by a true visionary in the med spa acquisition space. But first, a word from our sponsor.
This episode is brought to you by New Era Intel. At New Era Intel, we help medical spas, dermatology clinics, and plastic surgery practices who are struggling with inconsistent patient retention, underutilized CRM systems, and manual systems that hold back your clinic's growth potential so they can finally increase quality repeat bookings, streamline operations with AI automation, and grow predictable monthly revenue with the right systems and strategy. They're able to create a premium, seamless patient experience while freeing up their team to focus on what they do best. If you would like to take your business to the next level, head over to neweraintel.com to get started.
Today, I am thrilled to be joined by Lisa Bell, founder and CEO of Amara. Lisa comes from an incredible background spanning Fortune 100 companies, finance, growth strategy, and health tech startups. She has pivoted into aesthetics with a very unique approach to acquiring and building med spas. Her company, Amara, is creating sustainable growth of all med spas across multiple states with a twist. Instead of rolling everything under one brand, Lisa is committed to helping each practice remain hyper-local, patient-first, and rooted into its community. Lisa, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Bethany. Very happy to be here.
Well, I'd love to start with your journey. You've worked, in multiple companies, health tech startups, Fortune 100 companies. What was the moment you knew aesthetics was the industry you wanted to focus on?
Yeah, it's funny. I do have quite a varied background, moving from very large publicly traded companies into hyper growth, venture-backed companies, and now very local, locally owned, let's say, med spas. And I fell in love with med spas. It was actually after I started into this endeavor because early on I was, not terribly familiar with the med spa space, but the first med spa that I visited is when things really clicked for me. I think my largest takeaway was everybody here is happy. I was just sitting in the med spa that we were looking to acquire, that one we actually did acquire, and clients were coming in just so happy, leaving so happy, and the providers were so happy. And having been in, I don't know, 10 plus industries, I have never seen anything like that. And that's kind of what solidified it for me. Like, okay, this could be a really fun way to spend some of my time and see what we can do with this industry.
Absolutely. I have to concur. It's a wonderful and fun and happy environment to get beauty products inside and out. It's a treat for everybody. I mean, you've had a huge background in finance and consulting, so that has to have shaped the way that you kind of look at med spas today and acquiring them. Is that kind of what drew you into the small business aspect of things?
Yeah, so I definitely lean on my experience a ton. I will say one thing that moved me more toward, we'll say, smaller businesses is uh, when I was spending time in consulting with larger companies, I was working a ton, working around the clock, and I enjoyed a lot of what I did. But at the end of the day, I started to realize like I just don't care. And I don't feel like I'm making a very big impact. Like I was working effectively nonstop, making a lot of decisions, working with some really smart people, but I didn't feel like I could really see the impact of what I was doing. And I didn't really care, right? Because I was like helping really large companies be even more successful, and they were already successful. And so that's what kind of helped me move into the smaller business space. And it is just so fun and so cool to be able to get my hands dirty and meet all of the clients, sit with the team, hang out in the spa, build chairs, make decisions that impact people every day. Um, and so while I am using a lot of what I've learned in the past, I am incredibly happy and find a lot more fulfillment in working with businesses that have a lot more mold and like ability to mold and impact to be made.
That's good. Yeah. We work with a lot of med spas as well, and we see the same thing. And it's so amazing to see the camaraderie and not so national brand, large corporation view. I really like it as well. I think, it's more in the people business instead of the business side of corporate for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about Amara. You've built a model around acquiring and holding local med spas rather than
hmm
kind of flipping or consolidating them all under one brand. What was the thought on that?
Yeah. So there are a few things going on in the macro environment, I'll say, that kind of led us to this opportunity. So one of the major things going on is there are a lot of little, let's call them little med spas with under 3 million in revenue each year, right? Like locally owned small businesses that are doing really well. But for whatever reason, the seller or the owner wants to move on, or they want to stay, but maybe they just, want to partner in some way. So we noticed a lot of that going on. And then we also noticed, yes, there are buyers. There's private equity coming into the space and a few other investors, but nobody is really looking at this size of med spa. It's a little bit too small for PE to take notice. And it's too big for, your friend or neighbor or even your employee to be able to purchase. And so that's where we thought there was an opportunity, right? We care very much about the personal and local brand. I mean, I'm sure we'll chat more about it, but that's part of what we're buying, right? The success of the brand locally. And so we want that to just continue. And and so that's definitely a critical part of it. But yeah, it was basically that gap of like private equity is not quite interested yet. Local buyers also aren't really a good fit, but there's a lot of opportunity to continue the success of these businesses.
You guys hit the sweet spot right in the middle.
So far, yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Could you kind of walk us a little bit about like how you identify and acquire these practices?
Yeah, a few different ways. So, and honestly, I'm constantly learning. So we try different approaches. We actually we both acquire med spas and build new ones, but primarily focused on acquiring. When we're looking for an acquisition, uh, usually they're either listed online or they come to a like one of the websites like Biz Buy Sell, something like that, an online marketplace for businesses, or an opportunity will come to me through my network somehow. So there are a lot of Facebook groups out there where owners and providers are chatting about their spas and what they want to do next. I have had some vendor partners recommend people to me, like the Allergans of the world. Just people I work with who just know, like, hey, this med spa is for sale. Do you want to connect, etc. And then another thing that I'm working on is a little bit of proactive outreach, going and finding med spas that I think could be a great fit and just making sure they know what their options are.
That's great. That's great. And you talked about networking. Can you kind of share an example of like how your network, your personal network of med spas kind of support each other? Whether it's buying power, staffing, or just kind of sharing knowledge between each other.
Yeah, I think so. That's one of the other main benefits of the approach I'm taking here. I definitely appreciate all of the perks that come with being part of a large business with, a lot of diversity in where your revenue's coming from and all of that. And so I think just having that safety net and that security is the biggest benefit that all of the spas share. So a spa isn't living, I'll say, like paycheck to paycheck, right? Like if they have a bad month or a bad week or even a bad couple of months, that can be okay because other spas in the group might be doing really well, and it just creates that breathing room. I think that's the biggest benefit. But there are definitely other benefits. So the cost synergies, of course, there's some shared resources, some shared processes, which just help save costs, but also again, where you go buy your products, usually they'll give volume discounts, which is just something that stinks about being a small business in the US or globally, honestly. The, hi- the the more you purchase, the bigger you are, the more leverage you have, and the more people bend to you and give you cheaper pricing. And, it's not exactly fair, but that is how it works. And so we certainly benefit from that as well.
Absolutely. I never thought of that aspect of things, but that's great. I mean, who doesn't want to buy in bulk, across?
Yeah.
So that's really cool.
Yeah.
Like one thing
Yeah.
I really admired about you that we spoke about was how you kind of center both patients and providers into your model. You
Mhm.
balance the local brand with the resources of being part of that kind of larger group. So I love that. I love being able to connect all the roles into one. How do you get your providers though to keep playing that like personal connection while being part of your bigger brand?
I would say a few different things. So they need to do a good job with clients for the med spa to even exist. And they need to be supported and have the resources they need to be successful and deliver those results to clients. And so, one thing that I do to help make sure that providers remain engaged through a transition, because transitions can be hard, is I have very candid conversations and try to understand what is important to you. Because you may think that everybody cares about the same thing, but they don't, right? Some people prefer flexibility or the ability to learn, and some people prefer autonomy. Some people just want money, right? And so really just trying to understand what's important to you and how can I give you that through this transition is critical. Um, and I also like to take the first 2 to 3 months to say, hey, let's start with where you're at, right? Like whatever contract or general agreement you have with whomever is selling, we'll start there. But tell me your goals, tell me your targets. I'll tell you what I think is a reasonable goal. And then at that 2 or 3 month mark, we'll look back and say, are we happy with how everything went? What would we change?
That's great. That's great. Yeah, it's got to start with the providers at the top, but how has your staff satisfaction kind of been since acquiring the practices?
Yeah. So measure staff satisfaction a few different ways. I think the most obvious one would be retention, right? If they're happy, they'll probably stay. The other thing that I do, which is kind of a learning from being in the corporate world, is 360-degree feedback. So giving them that channel to provide feedback, personal reflections on themselves, their teammates, as well as me and leadership as well. So um, I measure it those two ways. I will say, I can usually tell pretty early on if somebody will not be happy with the transition. And
Mhm.
although one of my goals is to acquire a spa where the team is happy to stay on, because part of that is like, a spa is successful because of the team, so you want them to stay on. Um, Sometimes I know, like, oh, this person is not happy with the transition, and so I'll try to figure out, can we make you happy? And if not, sometimes yes, a transition out makes sense. And honestly, I'm happy for them because at the end of the day, providers need to be really happy with where they are. And if they're not happy in their job at the spa with their clients, then you are better off with them moving on and bringing in somebody who is a good fit. So, yeah,
Yeah, a couple of the people we've been consulting, they're so scared to let go of people that have been around for a long time or were there when they got there, and we just encourage them, they have to align with the culture and the brand. And if they're miserable or they're not doing their job, it's encouraging to maybe let them move on to something else. So it's a great way to look at
yeah,
things. Well, kind of on the acquisition side, I think there's kind of like an awareness gap because many med spa owners don't realize that they could sell their business instead of just closing their doors. Do you kind of typically find that potential acquisition, appealing, or like how do you take someone who's not really sure to yes, you can?
yeah. That is one of the biggest challenges that I still don't know how to solve because it's really just access to information and knowing that this is an
Mm.
option for you. It might not be the best option for you. It might not be what you want to do. That's fine, but you should be aware of it as an option. I wish I had a dollar for every time someone came to me and said, "Oh, can you believe so and so around the corner shut down?" And I was like, "They shut down. They were a successful med spa. Why did they just shut down?" They have so many options. So yeah, the awareness gap is something I'm trying to solve. And honestly, I can speak for myself, but there are all kinds of buyers out there who may be willing to buy spas in different situations. I personally am looking for spas that are in small to mid-sized cities and are successful. And success usually means you have really great client reviews, which means you've delivered incredible outcomes, and you're financially sustainable, which means you're probably profitable every single year. To me, that's something where I would look at that spa and say, please, 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 at least consider your options before just shutting down.
Absolutely. What are some like must-haves for you that you evaluate before deciding to purchase a med spa?
Yeah, there are a handful. So one thing that, I'm assuming it's mostly med spa owners and potential sellers who are listening to this podcast. So one thing I would say from their perspective is most buyers, myself included, are going to take historical information as one input, but what really matters is what does the future of this med spa look like? And so a must have for me, again, I consider, okay, what do you have right now? What have you had in the past? But most critically, like, what will it be in the future years? Because that's really what I'm investing in, the future success. And so, um, it's just that, like, what is the likelihood of the continuation of this success? And that can mean a lot of different things, and it really does. And that's I'm sure we'll talk about this later as well, but that's how my approach is slightly different. I think most buyers will come in and be like, do you check these 5 boxes? If so, we'll keep talking. I'm more fluid and willing to work with you and try to figure out, like, okay, you might think that you're not able to sell this because you're an owner operator and the only provider. And if there's no amazing provider to replace you, yeah, you probably can't sell it. But if there is an amazing provider to replace you, and we do that really well, which we've done before, then you can sell. And so I hate to give like, hey, these are the boxes to check, but the overall thing that I look for is, can this med spa continue to be successful into the future?
Absolutely. What are some of the things like these owners that you're talking to or around? Like what are they overlooking when they start to consider to sell?
Um, I would say a few different things. So again, it's kind of like, which hat are you wearing as you think through it? Like, I have had owners think like, hey, again, in kind of the solo provider world, like, look at all of this money I'm making. You should give me a lot of money for my spa. And the thing I would say is, you need to consider the future and what it looks like without you there. And without you there, somebody would need to get paid to provide all of those services. And so what might look like, I don't know, $1 million to you is really only a $500,000 after we pay the team to do all of the work. And so again, it's just kind of thinking like, what does this mean in the future? But honestly, I've noticed a lot of med spa owners, they don't have their financials super clean. And I get that. It drives me crazy because I need financials to be super clean. But at the end of the day, you really don't need it. I've seen too many successful med spas where the owner is just like, I don't know, the bank account just grows, so I'm cool with it.
Oh my.
Um, yeah, yeah. And I'm like, you know what? If that's working for you, that's fine. But if you are looking for a buyer, you really should get your financial ducks in a row and have an idea for your own benefit of what your true profit is and what you think the business is worth.
Great advice. That is great advice. We have them come to us sometimes and be like, I think I'm ready to sell. We've made XYZ and everything. And, we do a little bit of a deep diving to see if we can help them or not. And some of them are so unorganized behind the scenes. I'm just like, I don't know if that's gonna work for you. I think you need a little organization on your side. So I like that advice.
Yeah.
That'll be great for people to get their ducks in a row for sure.
Yeah. I will say one thing on financials, if I may. Another thing I've noticed is like commingling of personal expenses and business expenses. Totally your business. Work with your tax accountant on that or your tax advisor on that. But what I'll say as a buyer is, if you know your revenue and your service mix and what you pay your people and your rent, uh, most buyers should be able to determine like what is noise, like random expenses that don't really matter for the future versus what is your true profitability. And so still, if you're overwhelmed by your own financials, and even if you don't want an accountant to help you with it for the purpose of selling, don't hesitate to reach out because that can be cleaned up by a buyer as well.
Oh, that's great. That is great. Um, well, let's say now you've bought a med spa. You've acquired them, you're keeping their brand. Let's say the provider left, it either got replaced, or all their systems are in place. As far as like going in and kind of reamping or making them even more successful, what does that look like on your end?
Yeah, a few different things. So I try to balance what I will call quick wins. Like the benefit is obvious and the cost is low. We should just do that. And it's not terribly disruptive or it doesn't change things much unless for just the better. So there are a lot of quick wins that I'll notice immediately and through the diligence process. So before we even close, I will have a bucket of quick wins of like, okay, if we close this spa, here are all of the things I'm going to do basically on day one to just make the spa more successful. And then other than that, there is a longer list of things that I prefer to not change too much right away, right? Like I'm buying a successful spa. I'm not trying to turn everything upside down. I want it to just continue to be great. And so most improvements will fall in the category of like, okay, I need to think through this. I need to really talk through it with the team. Maybe I need to talk to a few different customers, do a little more competitive research. Um, and so, yeah, I kind of like develop these two buckets. Examples of things that I would want to do right away on day one is improving the client experience. So anything we can do to make booking online easier, make combing through the menu easier, see the spa. Some spas, if you can imagine, don't even have signs outside. And I'm like, I don't even need to think about that. We're putting a sign outside. So there are just some obvious things where nobody would be like, oh, don't do that yet. And so I like to do those right away. And then a lot of other things that I just think through more before improving or launching at the spa.
I love that. I love your gentle approach, not trying to come in and ruffle too many feathers or, disrupt the whole flow of things. So it's smart. I like that. I know you had kind of touched a little bit on, the patient, satisfaction and
Mhm.
flow of things. And we can't skip the role of technology, between AI and automation, CRM systems. There's so many tools out there. How do you kind of see technology right now supporting the growth in these med spas that you're acquiring?
Mhm. I look forward to technology doing so much more. Um, the most important part of a med spa, of course, is delivering incredible results to clients. I don't really expect that last mile of delivery, let's say, the actual care being delivered to the client. I don't
Yeah,
think that will be tech enabled anytime soon. Um, But basically everything up to that point, I would love to see more automation, more efficiency, things that enable your staff to focus on what matters and remove every point of friction for your client. Um, and I will say it's a tough balance because these are small businesses, right? So and I preserve the local brand. So although there is an EMR I prefer to use, there may be disparate different EMRs. And so now you're working in multiple systems and automation becomes more complicated when you have a bunch of smaller businesses. And it cannot be sometimes it's not cost effective. So I don't think we've not even skimmed the surface in what needs to be done to improve the patient experience and make providers and administrative staff and office staff as efficient and happy as they can be. But I'm so excited for that to improve. And I do see little pockets of improvement everywhere. And I know that you and your company also focus on that. And I just think that's huge and hugely needed.
absolutely. I know. I've been in derm and plastics for over a decade and then transitioned into marketing, and everything was still very manual, up until a few years ago where AI has just boomed. And we have
Yeah.
been able to kind of foresee that future of being able to automate and make things seamless and things like that. But with that said, like you mentioned, you have to have that human interaction. I don't think anything besides some future weird robot, you know, providing services or something in the future, which I hope that never happens. But, you have to have that HI, the human interaction, and the human intelligence. So that's also very important, especially client facing people business. Well, kind of zooming out for a minute, what do you kind of see as like the biggest challenges med spa owners face before the acquisition ready? They're basically ready out the door. What's that last moment to get them over the hurdle?
Yeah, I think one thing, if I could sit down anybody who's thinking about selling their spa, one thing I would ask them to do and just feel incredibly comfortable with going into the process is really have an understanding of why you want to do this and what's important to you. Is not the same for everybody. And you being happy with this sale, whether you stay on or move on, you being happy with the sale is such an important part of it. And so I would say that's one thing that I would ask people to strongly consider as they go into this and kind of keeping that as their true north, right? Because if at the end of the day what you care about is your legacy, then maybe you're willing to wiggle a little on a few other things for the sake of keeping your legacy in place, right? And so just really knowing what's driving you. And for some people, again, it might just be money, and that's great. But then you'd have to recognize, okay, I might be bending on a few other things if all I care about is the dollar amount I'm getting.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Uh, so kind of wrap it up. If a med spa came to you and said, I'm ready to sell in 2 to 3 years, what would you say their next step is to get from that point to selling?
Mm-hmm.
Besides finances. I know you said to get all the finances in a row, but just projection thinking.
Yeah, yeah. I would say build a sustainable business and make smart investments. And that includes the investments in people, in marketing, in devices, in what you're leasing or owning. Uh, Two, you want to be selling. As a seller, you want to be the one with the power, right? You want to have this incredible business that somebody would be lucky to get. Where sellers get in a bad spot, and I think if they had planned a couple years in advance they could avoid that spot, is they get desperate or they feel like, oh, I have these liabilities, I have these devices to pay off, I signed up for a 5-year lease, all of the I invested X dollars in making this the most beautiful spa ever, and now all of the sudden you are not in the decision-making seat. You're not in the seat of power. And so I would just say, set yourself up for success. And you should honestly do that whether you plan to sell or not. But you want to be the one with all of the power at the negotiating table. And to do that, you need to be very comfortable with all of the liabilities that you have and all of the assets that you have.
Wonderful. Wonderful advice for them. Well, kind of shifting back to you, where do you kind of see Amara going in 5 to 10 years from now?
Yeah. My goal for Amara is that it's a much bigger group of locally owned med spas nationwide in the US, maybe international. I don't know. 10 years is a long time. Um, where, again, the med spas just have incredible local brands, local dominance, and but then also have that security of being part of the bigger group. So I think it will just be bigger and hopefully doing a lot more to just make everybody more efficient and deliver better results.
I love that. Well, Lisa, this has been such a powerful conversation. I love the way that you're kind of redefining what growth looks like in aesthetics. Not just bigger, but stronger and more sustainable for patients, providers, the owners, everybody involved. So, for anybody that kind of wants to learn more and connect with you and kind of explore the acquisition opportunities or just ask you questions, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Yeah, I would say email is best. That's just, because I always operate on email. And my email is Lisa, Lisa, at amarahealth.us, AMARA health.us.
Perfect. 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 Well, thank you so much again for sharing your journey and insight with us today. And for our listeners, thank you for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe for more conversations with leaders who are reshaping the future of aesthetics. Until next time, I am Bethany Gifford, and we will see you soon.